All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are first timers, welcome to my channel. I am. Let's see. I am live. Okay, it's a Thanksgiving Saturday. Normally, on a Thanksgiving Saturday, I would just be getting out of bed right now. But as those of you who are here know, I have Dr. Thunder, and he said, "Hey, let's do it Saturday morning." Okay, so I said, "All right, well, let me get out of the bed at 7 a.m." So I've been up for an hour and a half. So I have Dr. Thunder waiting, and we're gonna do a Q&A. He agreed to come to my channel and talk with me about various things. So after I play this very, very short intro, this is a short one. I'm going to bring up Dr. Thunder. We're going to have a Q&A, and I want to respect his time. I want to thank Detro0861 for being here. You're the first one here. Yeah, let's see who else comes through. So I'm going to play this very, very quick intro, and then I'm going to bring Dr. Thunder up, and we're going to have a little Q&A for the next hour and a half. So I'll see you on the other side, and I promise this will be brief. Because of where I come from, see, in this world, we're all living in different worlds, and not everybody is privy to the same information. All right, good morning, everyone. They say sometimes doing nothing is something. Usually when I create those intros, there's talking underneath. I did that with Dr. Keisha Johnson and Aaron Clary and other individuals, but this is my first time talking to Dr. Thunder, so I didn't have any audio to put under there. And I thought about making some thunder sounds underneath that Black Adam symbol, but I decided not to do that. So I have Dr. Thunder today, and if a large enough crowd comes through, I might do some book giveaways because I just finished. Well, I'm in the process of revising my self-published book, and if enough people come through, I will do some giveaways with some trivia questions. But for now, everybody, I'm going to bring up the honored guest, Dr. Thunder. We're going to talk about academia and how he became a YouTube content creator and some of the critical issues that Dr. Thunder addresses on his show every morning. And I've become a fan of his. So everybody, with that, let's welcome up Dr. Thunder. Good morning, Dr. Thunder.
Good morning. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm all right.
Okay. Well, Dr. Thunder, I created something special for you, man. that I do with guests, and I've become a fan of your show. And so we're both academics. I'm a government academic at this point, but I noticed that there were a couple of vocabulary words that emerge on your show. And I want to, because of one of the questions I'm going to ask you, I want to show this to my mother. But there are people who are not in this sector who don't know what these words are. So we're going to run briefly through these.
All right.
Dr. Thunder uses words, for those who don't know. T. Riddler knows, Detro0861, they know what these are. But for those who don't know, there's a quote unquote urban dictionary. All right. And I'm wearing my Angry Man Dusty shirt right now. This is Dustin, and Dust We Trust. So I thought that would be appropriate for this. So a few key vocabulary words from the Dr. Thunder lexicon. So body count. This and I that might not be the best word to start with. Body count, for everybody, for folks who don't know, body count refers to, well, the number of the total number of sexual liaisons and partners you've had. Okay,
Right.
kind of like mileage on a car.
Yep.
That might sound a little bit brutal, but everybody, there's an Urban Dictionary where these terms are being used regularly. The next one is duopoly. Actually, that probably doesn't come from the Urban Dictionary, but you used that one quite a bit in this election season. Dusty, that one is very much from the Urban Lexicon, and I think everybody, a content creator named Shira7, I think she made that one famous. And Dusty, help me out with this, Dr. Thunder. Dusty basically means a broke, um, uh, a broke black man. Go ahead.
Yeah. So at this point, Dusty just means black man.
Okay.
So that I mean, it's because you could be high earning and still dusty, or you still dusty because you could be an academic, you could have degrees and they still call you dusty. You could be um, a family man. You know, you could be. I mean, I've heard criticisms of so-called educated lames, where the state of the community is due to the educated lames not reining in the behavior of the pookies, and so then by extension you're dusty. So it's become an all-purpose way to slander black men.
Okay. Everybody, please smash that like button. Let's see. I have two more. So we have Dusty. So Keisha. So Keisha is a common name in the inner cities, but Keisha has become much the same way Karen has become the proxy for middle-aged, aggressive white women.
Right.
Keisha has become a proxy or an avatar for your inner city, your modern inner city, uh, younger black women exhibiting specific behaviors. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah. So Keisha's not everybody.
Right.
Keisha is I present Keisha as being a loud minority of in total number of black women. The one that is unashamed about her body count, the one that is, she got a few baby daddies, never prioritized marriage, one that multicolor, uh, you know, multicolor, wigs and whatnot, wearing the bonnet, bonnet in public. Um, got everything is showing, everything's so squeezed tight. She had no business wearing that. Probably shouldn't wear it anyway because uh, her physical fitness, her level of physical fitness does not warrant wearing that anyway. But wears it anyway, in public, twerking on, in restaurants, you know, uh, uh, all of the, you know, all of that, exaggerated behavior, loud for no reason, inappropriate for no reason. Um, all of that, those sort of extroverted, irreverent, disrespectful, and the raptor claws, snuffleupagus, eyelashes, um, you know, uh, you know, tattoos all over the place. Um, all of this kind of stuff. Now, you could have tattoos and not be a Keisha, right? And frankly, you could have raptor claws and not be a Keisha. Wear wigs, or you could. There's a lot of things that you could do. I'm just saying, a lot of these things tend to travel together. Um, and you know, getting work done to your body and stuff, you know, getting BBLs and all of this kind of stuff, and supposedly that's going to be their ticket to attracting a good man. And then of course, this kind of woman with the constant, y'all are dusty, men are all dusty, you're all the same, like this, and taking no accountability for all of the aforementioned things that I just said. So none of that has to do with why you end up just constantly attracting pookies. None of that has to do with your history of reproducing with pookies without the need of a marriage license. None of that has to do with it. It just has to do with y'all are dusty and X, Y, and Z. So it's that kind of mentality that that's Keishian, the sort of Keishian pathology, if you will.
Okay, thank you for that breakdown. And so for the uninitiated, I mean, these are conversations, these are vocabulary words that have been, that are used outside of cyberspace, but they're used in cyberspace. And me and Dr. Thunder, we're going to talk a little bit about politics later on, but these are all discussions. There's a whole host of discussions that have been had outside of the mainstream media and outside of mainstream culture that even the older generations are now privy to. And these are words that are being used in these discussions. I left Pookie off, but the last one I have here is ninja. Okay.
Oh yeah.
And everybody, that's I guess it's kind of a Ice Cube thing where somebody took the N word and repackaged it to say ninja. One of my buddies actually shared this with me a couple of years ago, and it's another form of the N word. Okay, everybody, I think
Right.
you all know out there what the N word is.
Yeah.
So as I watch Dr. Thunder's content, he weaves in these urban vocabulary words and in the mornings and as a part of his unique presentation and show. So I just thought it would be fun to go over those and introduce those for those
Sure.
who don't know what this all is. Okay, so Dr. Thunder. So let's make good use of the time. So question number one. So welcome to my channel. Thank you for coming. In as much detail as you want to share, what is the Dr. Thunder story and where are you from and how did you get to this point?
Okay, so and on my channel it says my sort of my elevator speech about who and what I am is musician, professor, social commentator, right? So that's and I could break each one of those down and try to give you a brief, kind of story as to how each one of those happened. So they're in order because nobody would want to hear anything that I had to say unless I had become successful at something. So my first success is with music. My dad is a great musician, great saxophone player, and I heard him playing the saxophone around the house, and so it made me want to do it. I wanted to be like Dad, right? I've described my dad as being my greatest hero, and if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be who I am. None of the things that I've been able to accomplish would have been possible. I describe the relationship, the fact that my parents are still together. The relationship I have with my dad as being my superpower, my unfair advantage. When you talk about what usually black folks get, I have an unfair advantage, and I fully embrace that. But not only do I have the unfair advantage of my parents still being together, of me having this sort of close relationship and having a common interest with my dad and my dad's ability to teach well and pour everything that he had accumulated into me, which was directly related to music, right? Not only that, but my just the constant support. you know, um, just the constant support. So anyhow, I started when I was 6 years old playing alto saxophone. My dad designed a what he called the sophisticated racing stand, right? Because remember, I'm 6 years old, right? Sophisticated racing stand, and it was a wooden stand. I still have it. I still have the saxophone I started on, which actually was the saxophone he started on. So there's a lot of history there. My son now plays that saxophone, you know. Um, and so he created the sophisticated racing stand, and it was so that you could put it on top of the piano bench, and the saxophone was completely supported by the stand, and I could walk up and I could just play the instrument because for a 6 year old, a saxophone is very heavy. It's a metal instrument. It's not a natural thing to have something a hunk of metal hanging around your neck, no matter what your age is. But certainly for a 6 year old, it's pretty cumbersome. And so by the time I started to develop more physical strength, and before you know it, all I wanted to do was play the saxophone. And so I was playing the saxophone 4 or 5 hours a day, and it's not something that I can't take credit for it. I can say, hey, I can't say, hey, I just had, discipline. I just worked hard. I can't claim any of that. I did it because I wanted to do it. I don't know. I mean, I know where it came from. I believe that that's my God given gift. I think that was something that I was intended to do, and I was set up for success right from right from the beginning. So I can't. So that's a scenario that I know that most people do not get. 95, 99% maybe of folks do not get that. To both be set up where what it is that I was intended to do, music, um, to have the kind of father that I had that was skilled and knowledgeable in that area. I got 3 lessons a week and an attentive ear on the practice room, as it were. And one thing which was interesting is my dad never called it practicing. He never called it practicing. He said, boy, go get your horn and let's play. Go get your horn and let's play. My dad is quite unusual. My dad has a 160 IQ. He was actually a member of Mensa, but he thought that was too pretentious, and so he disassociated. Um, he got a full ride scholarship to go to Harvard for an MBA. He couldn't go there because he had a family. He ended up turning that into at another college that was closer by into a full ride at another institution. Um, and that's how he did his MBA. But I think he started school as a music major, and then changed within his first year to industrial engineering and did a music minor. And then by the time he went to do his master's degree, he was uh, he had kids, and so he was working a full time job. He had kids, graduate student, all of this stuff that he was doing at the same time. Him and my mom got to married when he was 20 and she was 19, and they had their first kid shortly thereafter. My older brother, um, and my dad never got less than an A on any assignment or test or anything his entire time at college. He's just that, you know. I So I had a great benefit of a a great dad that was equally capable and totally devoted to his family. Totally devoted. All of my siblings. I've got a younger sister and a younger brother. They're both tremendously successful in their careers. My younger sister is a psychiatrist. My older brother is a computer um, computer uh, what am I saying? Computer security, like software security kind of programmer. Um, everybody's making all kind of money, everybody's married with kids, all of that, right? And it's because what has been demonstrated in the relationship my dad and my mom had. I remember having a conversation with my mother not long ago where um, she was expressing, uh, and I think that, I was watching Body Bacham before we got on, and he was talking about the sort of history of, he was talking about feminism, and he was talking about Christian feminism, and you know, and one of the things that happens is a lot of women that decided to prioritize their family decided that, hey, I'm going to put all my energy into the kids, which my mother did. She didn't work. Um, they'll get to a certain point when they start to question, because society is telling women that you need to do what men do. And in order for you to be deemed successful, you must be measured by the same measuring stick that a traditional man would be measured by. And so we had a conversation not that long ago where I thanked my mom. I said, you know what? At times you may believe that there are some skills that you had that maybe you could have gone further with, because my mom was like super naturally skilled with like drawing. She could sketch anything and shit like this. But let me tell you, the sacrifice you made is much to our benefit. Had you not made the sacrifice that you made, I look around and see and just see how unadjusted and ill-equipped and in need of mothering most folks are, because instead of being raised and instead of having that close relationship with the mom, they were the child care person or the teacher at school or whatever it is, or a relative or something ended up having more time with the kid than the mom. And that was not the case in our situation. Um, she was cooking multiple times a week. She was doing the whole thing. It was greatly to our benefit that we had a mom that fully embraced that this was the most important thing. And it wasn't a cop out. It wasn't a because, other stuff didn't work out and, fallback plan. No, this right from the beginning was what she wanted. And so shout out to mom. Um, but so I started very young as a musician. I started putting records out when I was 14. I started composing music right after I started playing the instrument, 7 or 8 or something. I started performing professionally when I was 9. My first record came out when I was 14. I opened for Ray Charles when I was 14. My band. And then I put several records out. So I had 3 records out before I graduated from high school. All composed primarily of original compositions and arrangements, and that's a testament to all of the time put in by my dad. All the time. I mean, that whole 10,000 hours business. Being able to start as early as I did, knowing what I wanted to do, it gave me a distinct advantage over folks that it took longer to discover that. And again, I can't take credit for that. That's not it's not the kind of thing where I can say, hey, well, y'all was just lazy. Y'all were dusty. That was the problem. Y'all were just dusty. No, it was just, that's just what it was. And like I said, I can't take credit for it. I thank God for it. Um, and some at times, and my son is 11,
Yeah.
and I recognize how weird I was when I see what my son actually was to do. He don't want to do the stuff that I was doing. He wants to do the regular stuff that kids his age want to do. And so, yeah.
Okay. Well, Dr. Thunder, thank you for that. I'm going to move us along because we're at 24 minutes and I want to make sure I get all these questions in. Slick Rick says, great t-shirt. Thank you, Slick Rick. This is from the Angry Man collection. Angry Man, if you see this, I'd like to interview you one day. But Dr. Thunder, you just said a lot. I'll just say this. First thing, my dad is he plays multiple instruments,
Sure.
and my parents split when I was young. And what you spoke to was the importance of fathers and having both parents there. And I feel like if my parents hadn't split, I'm not blaming either one of them, but I would have gotten a little bit more of who he was. Now I did teach myself how to play keyboard a little bit, so I know how to read music. But when you have a day job and you start late in life, it's hard. But I do have an appreciation for music and what you all do, and I'm just saying that what you said was powerful, and that it showed the importance of having your father there. And so what I'm hearing also is that you being a doctor yourself, or you being well trained yourself, that just didn't come out of nowhere. That your father played a huge role in that. The other thing,
all of that started with my dad. It all started with my dad. Just real quick, the professor thing is an outgrowth of the music. So I applied for a position, and I'll just go ahead and say it at Ohio State, where I'm still at. And because I know I see what you got behind you, and given the weight of the game today, I know. This is quite fortuitous that we'd be having this discussion today. I became a professor in 2004 at Ohio State. Hired as an assistant professor. I got tenure and was promoted to the rank of associate with tenure in 2010. And then recently, this past May, I was promoted to full professor. So there's that. That's because of the expertise as a musician. So that wouldn't be the case. And then, although having conversations and kind of being interested in, debates and conversations amongst folks that don't agree, and just seeing how different ideologies and things, how they interface. That was part of the reasons that I was attracted to the academy. But that's something that I've been doing since I was, a teenager. It's something I've had a deep interest in, and something I started asking really deep questions about. And so the social commentary is just, it may seem like it could seem like it's out in the left field, but it's actually stuff I've been doing. I just haven't been doing it online until fairly recently.
Okay. So I'm going to move us to the second set of questions. But everybody, this is a really good book. What Dr. Thunder just talked about regarding his mother, this is it ties into this book. So this is Reclaiming the Black Feminine by Kendra D. Some of you know Crimson Cure. I read this. I'd like to talk to her one day as well. But in closing this year out, I'm going to read a passage from the end of this. And what Dr. Thunder got to regarding his mother is this. I told my mother that there aren't many women like her. This is going to get me in trouble. But I told my mother there aren't many women like her left. And when I look at pictures of my grandmothers, we're likely not going to see any of those anymore unless something happens. And Dr. Thunder, you might have heard this yourself. Many modern women, this is no shade, but they look back at our mothers, our traditional mothers and our grandmothers as giving up too much. They gave up too much. If you stay at home and take care of the children, which is arguably the most important job, their most important job. But the view now is that's giving up your life, that's giving up your freedom, that's giving up too much. And I think, it that helps explain a lot of what we're seeing around us. Okay, which much of what you cover on your show daily.
Yeah.
Um, but I just wanted to add that on. And we'll probably come back to that in some way, shape, or form. So we talked
Sure.
about your educational training. I know what instrument you play. What led to you becoming a YouTube content creator?
Okay. So, and I play. I mean, I said saxophone, but I play saxophone, flute, clarinet. I play keyboard, guitar, and bass. And musical direction, composing, arranging. The whole sort of assortment. The whole thing. And as a modern musician, it's important that you be, especially as a black man, you must be versatile. Um, and I have experienced that and have felt what a lot of black musicians, a lot of black male musicians describe as being the need to be 2 to 3 times better than our white counterpart to get the same opportunity. Um, and so, um, so I've developed skills, and if you heard me playing any of those instruments, you wouldn't be able to tell what my primary instrument is, and that's important because that's how you work.
Okay, so that's a Prince level of mastery of multiple instruments. Um, but is that what, going back to the question? Is that what led you? I mean, was your initial content on music?
Yeah. So back in 2000, I want to say it was 2007. I think is when my YouTube channel started, and I started by posting clips of lessons that I was teaching, and I had a series called Lesson of the Week. And so it was weekly content. It was little clips of lessons, and then I started publishing like videos of performances and all kinds like that. And then let's see here, what happened? I got to a certain point, uh, and then I just kind of stopped doing stuff, and my channel was monetized and everything, but I just I kind of stopped posting stuff, and then I lost monetization and like this, and but I was like, hey, I should get back to this, and then what happened was the pandemic hit. So that pandemic hit, and I had wanted to do a podcast, long form kind of content, discussion based content for a long time. And so what I did was I used the availability of a lot of folks that I know, and I've had the a distinct pleasure and benefit of performing with a lot of household names as far as musicians, and I've got a lot of really good relationships with a lot of really well-known folks. And so what I did was I was like, okay, let me do a podcast. Everybody's available right now because the world just shut down. And so that I took advantage of that. And the first 50 episodes of that were called the Quarantine Interviews. And then I changed the name from the Quarantine Interviews to Conversations with Dr. Thunder. And what started happening, my most of the initial interviews were musicians, but my goal was always to interview people from a kind of wide array of different perspectives. So politicians, dancers, ministers, um, all kinds of different folks, thought leaders of different kinds. Um, and I started to, I discover through doing a lot of these and watching a lot of different kind of content, I started to discover, I didn't know what I was discovering, but I started to discover the Black Manosphere. The Manosphere, red pill kind of spaces. I started seeing a lot of stuff. And the first content creator that I saw was, um, oh my goodness, Solo TV 84. All right, and Solo TV 84. I was like, what is this about? And then he's in here talking greasy about single mothers and stuff, and I was like, oh snap! I was like, you can talk like this? I didn't know you was permitted to talk like this. right? But I also noticed that there was a lot of substance to what he was saying. It wasn't just that he was, you know, derogatory towards single mothers. He was actually concerned about uh, black men. I mean, he was concerned about men in general, but black men in particular. And so he was expressing things from a particular perspective, and many of which were things that I identified with. And I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. Um, and this is the kind of stuff that you wish you could talk about, but you know you're not allowed to talk about this in the public square. And so anyhow, I started from watching him. I started discovering some other folks, and I remember Donovan Sharp, for instance, was another that poked out. Um, and then I remember watching his show, The Six, which became The Seven, and then back to The Six again. And he had Kevin Samuels was on there, Solo TV 84, Myron Gaines was on there. Let's see here. I'm missing a bunch of folks. I know for one season he had CGA was on there. But the early iterations, and he had folks. I was like, oh, this is interesting. Oh, how can I not mention Minister Jap, right? Minister Jap was on there. Um, and this just was like kind of blowing my mind, um, what was actually happening online, because I was like, this would have never been permitted, even just days, not long ago. You couldn't say any of this, right? So I was like, this is pretty incredible, and by no means am I condoning everything that those content creators say. There's a lot of things that I disagree with. But the fact that those conversations were allowed to happen, which I thought was important, and I was like, man. And so I started interviewing some folks from this space. I've done a couple interviews with Donovan Sharp. I did a couple interviews with Solo TV 84. I interviewed CGA. I've interviewed what's her name? Jessica X. I got an interview with her. I did a couple interviews with Chantel Simone.
Wow.
I've interviewed a bunch of folks in that space, and it was important for me to do that. I interviewed BGS Idmore a couple times. I interviewed
Chun-Li Shoddy.
Man, go ahead.
Chun-Li Shoddy.
Yeah, Chun-Li Shoddy. A long list of folks, and I'm forgetting a bunch of people. And I interviewed some people that were sort of on the other side of that. I interviewed what's Sister George. I interviewed. I remember I interviewed this. I can't remember her name right now, but she was more of a kind of the definition of a modern woman, by a female violinist, talented musician, but her sort of perspective was more of the common perspective. Public square, you're allowed to say what it is that she says. Controversial. They think it's controversial. It's what's amazing to me is there's a bunch of people that think that the stuff that they're saying is edgy and is controversial, and it's like, that's not controversial. That you're like right in the middle. You're saying exactly what you're allowed to say, and you're calling it controversial. You're saying exactly right dead center of the of the Overton window. That's the stuff that you're saying. And the reason that you get away with it is because you're saying it and it's expressing a particular female perspective, right? Which we know that you can be edgy if you're saying stuff that is pro woman. You're not allowed to be edgy if you say stuff that's pro man. So anyhow, that's how I got here. And stuff is just, I just kind of go where the conversation goes. I've interviewed Larry Sharp. Larry Sharp, the Libertarian gubernatorial candidate. He was on Joe Rogan. I interviewed him a couple times, and I've been on his channel a couple times. So I'm interested, in a lot of different sort of topics. I've had sort of Christian kind of apologetics kind of folks on the channel. So yeah.
Okay. So everybody, I told Dr. Thunder, we're gonna have a little fun this morning. So guys, so I published my book, and then I realized it needed revisions. So it's almost at the end of the revision process. This is it. I'm going to show this again at the end. I'm going to do some giveaways. Okay. It's a story about actually some of the things Dr. Thunder talked about. It's a story about the importance of having fathers and male figures in your life, and what happens when you don't. It's a basketball story about what sports teach you about life. And it's been revised, new cover, much cleaner grammar. But I decided to do, as a part of this re-rollout, I'm going to do some giveaways. Okay, so we're going to do some quick trivia. This is the first question. These will be sprinkled throughout. Okay, this one is going to make some of you laugh. Dr. Thunder, we're Gen Xers, so you probably laugh at this. Okay, guys, I need the first person to finish this sentence, I'm going to give a free book to. This comes from an episode of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Okay, Jeffrey, the butler. Okay, Will was up to one of his schemes, and one involved poetry. Jeffrey read Will's poem, then he read another poem that went like this: cannon to the right of them, cannon to the left of them, cannon in front of them, volley and... Who can finish that sentence? Volley and... First person to answer that, I'm gonna send a free copy of my book. If it takes too long, I'm gonna move on because I only have Dr. Thunder for a little while. Cannon to the right of them, cannon to the left of them, cannon in front of them, volley and... Anybody. Passport OG probably knows what this is. I'll give this 30 to 45 more seconds. Cannon to the right of them, cannon to the left of them, cannon in front of them, volley and... Anybody. I thought somebody would have thought of it by now. Okay. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, 1006, 1007, 8, 9, 10. Passport OG says I'm not a Fresh Prince guy. I'm a Cosby Show guy. Okay, well, you guys keep thinking about it. If anyone puts it in the chat, then you'll get a free copy. Okay, so moving on, Dr. Thunder. So I've watched your content, and I've started to see that many of your core messages involve religion and spirituality, two very controversial topics in today's modern world. What motivated you to start talking openly about your faith and spiritual beliefs?
Yeah, so my content is Black male centered, expressing the perspectives of and giving voice to in a platform for those to express issues associated with Black men and boys. So that's my bias, right? So that's what I'm aiming for. The three most important things, of course, the three most important topics are going to be relationships, right? Because without coupling, you don't have a society, you don't have a family, you don't have, procreation, you don't have, you can't be fruitful and multiply without coupling. That's the most fundamental, basic component. You have to have that. So that, of course, is of critical importance. And it's funny to me that people will try to act as though, and they'll try to shame you from talking about that, and acting as if that's not a critical thing, and acting as if we got this together, we're okay, this is just totally natural. Look, at this point, even animals do this better than we do. Animals do this better than human beings, right? Because they don't have all of this other baggage, all this artificial stuff that doesn't actually matter. That's in the way. They can just make decisions. We can talk about mammals. The female is going to be very discriminating as to who she's going to reproduce with. She's not going to just she's not going to just because she's trying to prove that she can be just like the male, uh, the male mammals, that she can run around and be like the male mammals. She doesn't do that. She says, y'all can do that if you want to, but I'm only doing this. Right? So they at least have enough sense to figure that out. And I'm not condoning, Pookie's running amok or anything like that. I'm not condoning men, being hedonistic and doing all like that. So that, of course, is important. Second thing, of course, and then of course that's associated with family and whatnot. Second thing is going to be politics. All right, so politics is, that's how people associate with each other. And largely, there should be a bias of those that are in intact family structures having a disproportionate sway on policies that get adopted. But unfortunately, because of the dysfunctional state of the Black community, you have folks that are in dysfunctional situations advocating for policies that will help them to reproduce their dysfunction, as opposed to reproduce healthy environments for families to thrive, right? And so that's of critical importance. So talking politics is that's something that is very much necessary. And then religion is how we relate with God. Why are we doing anything? Why are we here in the first place? What motives or incentives do we have to do right? What is right? How can we even define right? Who gets to say what's right and what's wrong? So all of those things are there. I mean, you in my estimation, you must talk about those things. Those are the only topics that actually matter. Culture is related to those things. Music is related to those things. Humanity, in every sense, is related to those things. There's nothing else. You must discuss those things.
Okay, everybody, 2Triv has the answer. So the answer was in Dr. Thunder's name. It's cannon to the right of them, cannon to the left of them, cannon in front of them, volley, and thunder. Okay, so 2Triv, send me your mailing information to this email address, info at Big Words authors.com. And when I make my first order of author copies, you're going to get one. Info at bigwordsauthors.com. Thank you for that. I didn't think anybody was going to get it. I was going to give a hint out. So sorry to interrupt, Dr. Thunder. So you said we those. Yeah, I agree. That's your spiritual beliefs. That's rolled into everything. And as a matter of fact, at Thanksgiving dinner, we talked about how the rainbow El Gibbet things have slowly creeped in to everything. And my mother told a story about how one of the local universities here in Buffalo, they sent tutors to her church, and one of the tutors, I if I recall this correctly, was shaped like a woman, but the person had a beard too. So a lot of the kids were confused. And the pastor at my mom's church, he took a real leadership position, and he said, we have to hold off on this program so we can get our handle on this. But your spiritual beliefs, your cosmic beliefs, whatever they are, they impact everything. Your partnering, your policies, your political leanings, everything.
That's right.
So, and I wanted to ask you about that because you're one of the few people who delve into that, who openly delve into that and openly delve into what you believe in. That may alienate some people, which is why it's so powerful that you're willing to delve into that area.
Well, and I try not to be preachy with it. I try to make it as far as where I stand what, in C.S. Lewis, his book Mere Christianity, in the sort of forward, in the introduction, um, he gives an illustration of a hallway with many doors, and I think a lot of people misunderstand what it is that he means. Uh, he clearly chose a door. He was high Anglican, which is, for all intents and purposes, basically Orthodox. Okay, that was the doorway that he chose. He wasn't in some way saying everything is the same as long as you have these few things in common. That's not what he was saying. He was saying the hallway is common, but you must choose a door. Now I've chosen a door. Okay, um, and if people want to ask me why I chose that door, that's fine. That's a conversation I'm willing to have. Mostly, I talk about religion and I have a lot of, admittedly, I have a lot of heat for the black church because I see that the black church has been critically involved in producing positive value system in the black community, but then has been primarily used in recent history to actually disseminate a lot of dysfunction, to condone and disseminate a lot of dysfunction. And so have been willing to give the black church credit for the fact that a lot of the, you know, embracing a lot of LGBT stuff and debauchery and stuff like that, that a lot of other communities were a lot faster to adopt. It took black community longer to fully embrace a lot of that stuff. And I think it's largely due to the fire breather, the fire breathing pastor in the black church, the minister that was willing to say all kinds of, inconvenient stuff, that was using actual, he was using stuff that was happening in their community, was pointing out people that are in the church. I see you in here, but I don't condone your business over there, selling, alcohol to minors and blah blah blah. I mean, they would be calling folks out in their congregation. You, if you had anything that was publicly known that you were doing, you were not going to be sitting on the front row. That was too easy for him to point at you and say, "You right there." You're the problem. You know what I'm saying? So it was a different kind of environment. Um, Now it's like anybody can sit in the front row and they're afraid to say anything. There's no discussion about, single motherism. There's no discussion about, making poor choices, um, not prioritizing marriage. There's no discussion about a large array of things that are the most critically important things. And so a lot of my content tends to, I have some heat for the black church, and so I will express that. And I'm not, you know, you know, I'm very familiar with the black church. I've worked at churches as musicians. Now I've been Orthodox for 20 years, so I've not been a member of the black church for quite a long time. But as far as working and being around folks that are in the black church, I'm very aware of what's going on.
Okay, so you attend. It sounds like you said you attend an Orthodox church.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you to explain what that is just briefly. I will volunteer that I attend one of the more prominent black churches in Northern Virginia, um, and the leadership of that church decided it would be good to have a social media presence, and with that, uh, it's come under criticism. I'll just say it's come under criticism from, I don't know if you're familiar with Delano Squires, but he hangs out with Jason Whitlock sometimes. I know some of you guys might not like Jason Whitlock, but they're conservative Christian,
Yeah, yeah.
and so I am at a crossroads right now in terms of whether or not I want to continue attending that, because that church is very progressive. Things are taught there, like the Holy Spirit is female, and the pastor at my church, came under heat during the last election cycle because he's on camera with the "I'm with her" shirt and her right to choose, and in the services, marriages are celebrated. They do take time to, all the married couples stand up. How many years have you been married? And we take time to celebrate that. But then, how do you celebrate that and then also say it's okay to, abort children? And then, and then also knowing how many abortions over the last 50 years have taken place in the Black community, how many people we have right now. How do those things reconcile? How do those things go together? So
they don't.
Go ahead.
They don't. And here's the thing, because most pro-life folks are reasonable. They would engage with you and say, hey, you're concerned about the health of the mother. Okay, we can give an exception. You're concerned about someone that, incest. We can give an exception. You're concerned about someone that, was forced. We can give an exception. Okay. So most are reasonable that way. Here's the issue, though, is that really only makes up 2%, 2 or 3%. 97%, 98% are completely and totally birth control. It's just, I was out here doing what I was doing, and I got pregnant, and I don't want a baby. Okay, so that's what 97, 98% of them are. And so when people try to use those arguments, it's completely and totally disingenuous. It's completely bogus. They just think that they can get in that doorway, and then they can throw that whole door open. Because really what they want is unfettered access to this. They want to have the same ability to do whatever that they want to do, go for the gusto, and then not have to pay the consequence of their behavior. They believe that is what men have been doing. They'll say, well, you men, y'all can just go wild and crazy like this, and you don't have any consequence. Well, we shouldn't have to have any consequence either. The problem with that thought process is it doesn't actually factor in, well, who are these men that you're talking about that are just out here wild and crazy that have that kind of access? You're talking about a very small percentage of men. You're talking about a very small percentage, because when you look at all of the numbers, now women have a higher body count on average than men for the same age. So like, say, for instance, if you're talking about 30-year-old woman, a 30-year-old man, that woman in almost every case has had many more bodies than that guy. So who are these guys that you're talking about that are running around rampant and just doing wild and not having to take responsibility for their actions? Who are these guys? We know in the Black community, you're talking about 16, 17% of the men are producing all of this illegitimate childbirth. We know that's the case. So really, this is I want to choose anybody that I choose for whatever dysfunctional reason that I choose them, and then I want to have, I want to be empowered to be able to make decisions about my own body. Now, here, the problem with the my own body discussion is nobody is trying to control you in your body. Nobody is concerned. I don't care what you do with your body. You can do anything you want to do with your body. But unless you have 20 fingers, 20 toes, 4 legs, 4 arms, 2 brains, 2 hearts, and etc., unless that's the case, we're not talking about your body. We're talking about a distinct human being that's being affected and not advocated for, you know, in this situation. And for a minister to be advocating for a woman to have the right to eliminate the innocent, that's one of the primary directives in Christianity, is protect those that cannot protect themselves. The language in the Old Testament, even about how our hairs are numbered on our head, and God knows everything about us, even when we're in the womb, right? All of that kind of language. Yeah, it's very difficult. I remember, and this was some years ago. And this was during one of the elections. Maybe it was one of Barack Obama's elections, and I went up to the minister after. And this is when I was still working at a black church. I went up to the minister afterwards, and I said, "How come in this thing? How come no one says anything about the abortion issue? We're in a church. How come we don't say anything? We got these politicians come in, they talk their stuff, and we don't say anything about the abortion issue." And he turned around to me and he said, "You know what? I don't hear anybody talking about that issue in the black church." And I was like, "Well, there you go."
Yeah. And everybody, there's a video out. I mean, I think what we saw in this election cycle is that there are some pastors who have started calling this out. There are some pastors who have rebelled against the Democratic Party, and I mean that's the party that's pushing, none of your business. It's none of your business. Mind your own business. It's none of your business what a woman talks about with her doctor. We're not going back. So that was encouraging to see, and I'm probably getting myself in trouble here, but it was encouraging to see some pastors push back and say, no, this is not what we're about. But also, I've also been pondering in recent years that churches are tools, I would say tools of political control, because I think it's known that you can go in and you can, if the pastor says, yeah, you can come in and talk about your platform, you can get thousands of people to vote for you. But briefly, Dr. Thunder, I'm watching the clock. Mm-hmm. What can you describe very briefly what an Orthodox church is? Because I think you just mentioned you attend an Orthodox church.
Okay, so the Orthodox Church is the early church. It's in the creed when it says the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. That is the Orthodox Church. So the term Catholic means universal. And that doesn't mean Roman Catholic. It means it's Catholic. So in 1054 was the Great Schism, and that was the Orthodox Church and the Roman Catholic Church split. Now they split because there is a few issues, but the primary issue was the Pope of Rome was just one of the archbishops. He was one of the archbishops. There was 5 patriarchates, and all of them had equal sway, so that they would, in any time there needed to be a decision made about something, they would convene in these councils, right? The Orthodox Church calls itself the Church of the Seven Councils. Okay, so they would convene in these councils. But what started happening is, because Rome was the largest jurisdiction, and there was a term being used, first among equals, for the Pope of Rome or the Bishop of Rome. They basically started to get the big head, right? The Pope of Rome started to get a big head and started making decisions that were not allowed to be made outside of the council, because the church is in communion. It's one church. So that sort of metastasized, and that practice metastasized, and eventually it led to the Pope of Rome, in an act of defiance against the church, called himself excommunicating the other 4 bishops. But that's not something that he could do anyway. So then the 4 bishops excommunicated the Pope of Rome, and and that was the Great Schism in 1054. Now, all of this sort of innovation and doctrine, much of what people have an issue with the Catholic Church, is stuff that transpired 1054 and beyond. So, like, for instance, the Crusades, a lot of that long list of things that, indulgences, all of that long list of things that were issues. Those were never issues in the Orthodox Church. It was never issues in the Orthodox Church, and many believe that although Martin Luther was right to have issues with the Catholic Church, but his solution was worse than what the Catholic Church did, right? Because through the Protestant Reformation, we now have about 60,000 Protestant denominations. So it's further fractured, but all of that stuff is due to the Roman Catholic Church initially splitting away from the one church. So when we say Orthodox Church, you're talking about a church that literally has an unbroken apostolic succession from one of the disciples of Christ all the way until the priest that I go to Sunday and I get communion from, that is the pastor of my parish. That person literally has been ordained in an unbroken connection all the way back to one that has, so there's a lot of continuity, a lot of history, there's a lot of questions to get answered. I wasn't raised Orthodox. It was something that I discovered. It was something that I went looking for. There was a lot of historical continuity questions that I couldn't find a good answer for, that like nobody knew the answer to. Even basic stuff like, well, why do we reverence the Bible? Why is the Bible the central document? And when was the Bible canonized? Like, when was it adopted? Like, when did it appear? How was it formed? Any of those kind of questions, folks either were not equipped to answer those questions, or their answers were more like, well, the Bible says it, so you should just believe it. And I'm like, well, why do we believe the Bible? Now my take on the Bible is different than the usual Protestant take. The Protestant take tends to be the sort of sola scriptura business that Luther, his whole thing. So, which means Scripture alone. You only need the Bible. Scripture alone is how we define things. The problem with Scripture alone is Apostle Paul says, whether by word of mouth or by letter, heed to my instruction. So letter, that would have been the Scripture, but he says word of mouth. So that tells you that it's not just a matter of what's written. And so when we talk about what the Word of God is, the complete Word of God would be the oral tradition and the written tradition. Those combined, because you wouldn't be able to understand. It's not possible to understand what the Bible actually means outside of the context that it was produced by the institution that produced it for their purposes. You can't extract that document from that environment and think that you're going to have a complete understanding of what it is that it means. So that started becoming like really, really important to me. And then even asking the question, what is the church? What is the church? People have this really abstract view of what that is. Like it's it's invisible body. It's people that have all agreed upon the same, information. Oh, Jesus was, he was crucified and he rose again and he's forgiven my sins and like this. And so somehow mystically, that's what the church
Thunder,
is.
hold on for a second. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Somehow mystically, that's what the church is. But actually, in that's not unimportant. But the church is visible and one. It's something that you'd be able to trace through history. This is the same institution. And the reason that I believe the Bible is not just because it's some mystical document and we should just believe what it says. I believe the Bible because it came from the church. And so that's a different sort of way to look at that. People just assume that churches are just that they're corrupt, and so you need to use the Bible to evaluate the church. But actually, the Bible says that the gates of hell would not prevail against his church. So you'd be able to locate the institution that the gates of hell had not prevailed against. And although you cannot have, human beings are never going to be perfect, you certainly can have perfect doctrine. And so orthodox, right teaching, that's what we're talking about.
Okay. All right, everybody. I've got Dr. Thunder for just a little bit longer. I'm going to do one more. Well, I want to get through 3 of these. Another book giveaway. Okay, so I suspect Aquatech might know what this is. This is an iconic scene from a graphic novel that coincidentally has a biblical underpinning. Okay, who can tell me the name that this iconic scene came from? Captain Marvel, Shazam, his superpower was thunder. And late in this graphic novel, he takes on Superman. There's Superman there on the ground. Who can tell me the name of this iconic graphic novel and where this scene comes from? Shout out to my brother Amal Dunbar, who turned me on to that graphic novel. Whoever can answer that question, I will send you a free copy of my now updated book. I'll show you the scene one more time. That's Captain Marvel. His superpower is thunder, just like Black Adam. And in this comic book, he goes head to head with Superman. Who knows the name of that graphic novel? Okay, I'm going to attempt to put a bunch of these together. Let's see. So you talk about you've been open about your past relationships. Does your wife? And there's a reason I'm asking this. Does your wife mind you talking about your relationship history or even the current state of Black relationships on your show? Some significant others say, "Why would you talk about this when you're in a happy relationship with me? Why are you spending time talking with these men about your relationships and what's going on in the community?" Does your wife? Does she care? Does she support what you do?
I think to the extent that perhaps I've shared some things that she was not aware of, and not intentionally, by the way, because I wouldn't share things that I didn't think that she was aware of, not on purpose. We've had some discussions about that, like, well, I didn't know that, this kind of a thing. Look, she's a woman and I'm a man. We don't see eye to eye on a number of things. I don't see that as a problem. I see that as an indication that we are oriented differently. And so she wouldn't express the same opinions, perhaps, that I would on a number of things. And so we've had some discussions about that. My reason for expressing what I'm expressing, sharing what I'm sharing, not hiding my journey, as it were, not putting my light under a bushel, as it were. Part of that is you have to show some warts. You got to show that, hey, I made mistakes too, and I know something about what I'm talking about. Here's my receipts. Here's what happens. Now, receipts aren't always, positive. Receipts aren't always, here's how I've always dominated the game. Receipts sometimes are, look, I made these mistakes. You don't have to make these mistakes, because I'm here telling you, don't do this and don't do that, because I did those things and it didn't work out. And I may have tried those things multiple times. So it might not be a good idea for you to waste, energy on that stuff. And time and resources and heartache and everything else. Now, the other reason that I share what I share is because even if it's in a small amount, if something that I can do by expressing my opinions by talking about the stuff that I talk about, can even by one iota change the dynamic for my son, who is 11, I'm interested in it. And I'll tell you, a lot of the reason that I talk about the stuff that I talk about is because of my deep concern about what is happening, what's coming down the pike, and how much worse it's likely to get by the time he's in the running. When he's looking for a wife. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's it's uh, it's tough. It's tough. I mean, and as I said, look, I'm sharing stuff that I wish I had known. If somebody had said many of the things that I say, if somebody had said those things, I would have listened. Not
Yeah.
necessarily everybody would have listened, but I would have listened. And so to those that are willing to listen, I hope that it's helpful. So
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'll share this. I got in hot water. I was with somebody over the last 2 to 3 years, and I got that question. Why are you talking about? And since then, I've kind of fallen back from the relationship talk myself because I'm not an expert, but that does happen when you're with someone and you're talking about the ills of the community, what's wrong with relationships throughout the community. The person you're with might not understand it, and and then if you're on panels, and guys are saying, and Dr. T.S. Johnson said it, all the conversations in minister spaces it's not always pleasant, but that doesn't mean that
no.
it's untrue. All right.
Well, here's the other thing. I have the reason I'm in this space is because there's a lot that is compatible with my value system.
Yes.
But there's also a lot that is not. Okay.
Yeah.
And I say things that frequently are pushed back against. I'm a pro-marriage, for instance. A lot of folks are not pro-marriage.
Right.
In this space. I am. I describe. And I described this earlier. I said that I think Keisha, that sort of Keishan pathology, is a minority pathology in the Black community. I don't think that is expressed by most Black women. Now, what I will say that is expressed by most Black women is a sort of allegiance to a sort of sister code, which doesn't allow them to speak up and speak assertively against certain things that they see. That they themselves have an issue with, but they don't want to be seen by the group as talking against that. I do think that is a majority sort of phenomena. But as far as those that actually are exhibiting these negative behaviors, the sort of sexy red, glorilla, twerking all over the place, and all this kind of wild stuff, that's a loud minority. Now, when I say that often, even in my own chat, a bunch of dudes will be like, "Oh no, they're all like that. They're all like this," And it's like, well, first of all, I know that's not true because there's a bunch of women in my own family that are not like that.
Yeah.
Like virtually, I'd say all of the women in my family, none of them are like that. So I know that is not the case. Now, I also know that, however, that if you bring up certain topics and you discuss them, many of them would probably express the opinion that you think that they would. But I don't think it's necessarily because they have thought that through fully, and or that they actually want to be the person siding with and defending sexy red.
Okay. Okay. I'm juggling here. I'm watching the clock. To Triv, thank you for the generous Cash App. If anyone else wants to support the channel, the super chat is live. I have Dr. Thunder for just a little bit longer, or until he has to run off. My Cash App and PayPal are here. The super chat is live. To Triv, I also got your email just now, everyone. So for those of you who didn't know the previous trivia question, I'm going to throw you one more from the comic book space. I'm sure some of you will know this one. Harrison Ford and Captain America: Brave New World, that's coming out soon. Harrison Ford is filling in for this character. The last name is Ross. He's also the Red Hulk. What's the nickname of this character? Okay, it's in part my guest's name, but whoever can answer that character's name, I'll send a free copy of my book. Let's see. So, like me, Dr. Thunder, you turn on your camera when you go live, and you mentioned how the reaction of your peers at your school to some of what you present. Do you want to talk about that? And has that gotten you in hot water, or has that gotten you alienated from your peers? What's been the reaction? And I'm careful about what I say now online, because I know that there are receipts and people will go looking up what.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you. I'll tell you this. I know that people have attempted to use things that I say to justify them doing things that I think are unethical against me. I know that has happened. But I have full professor swag. You can't do nothing to me. So you can try to do that, and you can act outside of what was intended to be the value system of the academy. So university is the two words squashed together. Unity for the three words: unity in diversity. Unity in diversity. The original point of the university was to discover the quintessence. So you have the first four essences: earth, air, fire, and water, right? The quintessence was seen as the thing that actually unifies and connects those things. It's the thread that threads those together, though they appear to be totally disparate. Why do they exist in the first place? What is the thing, that the governing principle that guides those? And so the point of the university system was to get a bunch of people that have different disciplines, different perspectives, to be able to get together and to discuss with frankness, could be heated at times, could be whatever it is, to discuss these things, to try to discover what that quintessence is. And I'm going to tell you right now, largely the reason that I am expressing what I'm expressing online is because much of what it is that I have to discuss, which I believe to be the most important topics, is not permitted in the academy. It's distinctly a cancelable offense to discuss things that are what I believe to be the most important things. And that is it's concerning, but it's an interesting dynamic when you have people that are academics seeking to do underhanded, left-handed, underhanded, shake your hand, smile in your face, go behind your back and try to derail you, all of this kind of behavior based on opinions that you have, based on how you disagree with certain things that they think, and they disagree with certain things that you think. This idea that cancel culture largely is an outgrowth of the academy. This is and it's incredible that this is actually where we are now, where even if your opinion is just straight controversial and seems to be almost just like just crazy. Even if it's just a crazy thing that you say, you still should not be blocked from the ability to express that. Okay, and the reason for tenure, a large portion of the reason for tenure, is so that people can express ideas that will be controversial, controversial ideas, without the fear of repercussion. So there used to be basically three kinds of folks in society that would be the people actually speaking truth to power. Okay, three. So one was the artists, comedians, musicians. You have a whole tradition of protest music, for instance, right? So you had that. Two, ministers. Okay, and we talked earlier about how ministers largely have been failing in this.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third thing was academics, those that are tenured. See, if I go into an environment, say I'm a scientist, I'm a flat earther. Everybody else, no, say the department I'm going into they're all flat earthers. But I have this view that the world is actually a sphere, and I have all this data that I've collected, and I go into that environment because I have tenure. I don't have to fear these other flat Earth folks trying to, block me from stuff and trying to push me out and stuff because here's this ninja, with the spear. He thinks it's like a marble. Right. You don't have to fear that kind of thing. But this is precisely what they're doing. And what's worse than this? Listen, what's worse than this is they have become so fully indoctrinated with the whole feminist thing that though the numbers have shown clearly, that they've gone past parity. Okay, so you can talk about undergraduate, undergraduate degrees, getting undergraduate degrees. It was in the 70s. It was 13% fewer women getting undergraduate degrees. As of 2023, it was 15%. As of 2024, 16% more females getting undergraduate degrees than the male students. If this was a movement of equality, then I don't know, sometime in the early 2000s or something, when it got to zero, late 90s or whatever it was, then the verbiage would have changed. The language would have changed, but it did not change. They just doubled and tripled and quadrupled down. And even though we know this research to be true, they are still saying exactly the same things that they've been saying the whole time. You need something to push back against that. And if they had listened to many of the kinds of things that I say and others say in the space, if they had been listening to that stuff rather than pushing those individuals out of the institution and trying to make their life as hard as possible, canceling them and all like that, if they had listened, perhaps we wouldn't be in this situation. No. But I think they like this situation. That's why they continue to push back against dissenting voices. I could give you probably another 15 minutes if you have if you have a couple more questions.
Okay, everyone. So if anyone's watching on the playback and you saw the 2 trivia questions that I asked and you don't know the answer, if you know the answer, you can email me afterwards and I'll still honor the free copy. But this is a general one. Aquatech, you'll probably get this one. This is for my scientists out there. If anyone wants to put in the chat, where does thunder, the sound thunder, where does it come from? If anyone wants to answer that, I'll send you a free copy of my book. Where does that come from? So a couple things there. So 15 more minutes. So talking about Keisha and what's happening in the Black community and population decline. That's one of the other impressive things that I've heard you talk about on your channel, because I've talked about that as a scientist myself, and the mainstream media is not talking about it. The Black church, the modern Black church, is not talking about it. Where was I going here? Centers for Indoctrination. Okay, that that's something that's been implicated with institutions of higher learning. Kids are going away and they're coming out thinking that having children is evil, or that humans are killing the earth, or that there
Right.
are too many humans on the planet, or that alternative lifestyles are okay. All of that is leading to one place. And even K through 12, there's concern that those are now centers for indoctrination, for things that will lead to less being fruitful and multiplying, that will lead to fewer families, that will break up families. And then my last question was for your son. What do you want for him going forward? Do you see that this thing can turn around in some way, shape, or form?
Yeah,
Before,
and this is where
hold on, before you answer that, Paul Wilson, thank you for answering that. He says, so that the heating of air when lightning strikes, the air cools, the thunderclap is created. All right, you two and Passport OG answered this as well. Thunder comes from the planet Tundra, land of thunder. Okay, that's not the scientific answer I was looking for. So Paul, yeah, so send your email me at this email address. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Dr. Thunder.
you're good.
Big words. And that sound used to scare me as a child. Now I just sleep through it. Info at Big Words Authors. Paul, if you email me your mailing information, I'll send you a copy once I get my author copies from Amazon. So go ahead. So I asked you a handful there, but what for your son, with all this going on, what do you want for him? And do you see any of this turning around? And you've talked about there may be only one option for all this, one result that can.
Yeah, well, I talk about two options, but ultimately it's really just one option. So what we're experiencing is the rather successful rebuilding of the Tower of Babel, right? So all of the sort of tumults, all of the dysfunction, everything that's going on is because we've rebuilt the Tower of Babel, and we collectively we don't have the sort of reverence for God. In many respects, government has replaced God. One of the reasons why you had so many people really, really upset about the last election is because they see government as their sustainer. They see government and what the government does as being basically having taken the role of God. Now I'm gonna say that any government structure is not the perfect will of God, and we know that from the Bible, right? Because Israel, they were like, hey, God was like, hey, I want to be your all in all. I want to be your God and your King and your Lord, your everything, your day to day, your manna from heaven, your water from a rock, your everything that you need. I want to be the person there holding your hand and providing those things. And they said, no, we don't want that. We want a king. We want a king like everybody else. Everybody else has a king. We want the same thing everybody else has. so God was like, okay, well, have at it. And so, obviously then ensues all this debauchery and everything that's gone down. Everything is terrible. And even though I would argue that the United States, we have the best version of government, it still has a flaw in that the individual is God now, right? Because the individual gets to vote on what they want to see put in place, right? And so I think that the reason that you don't see as much sort of outcry by black men, for instance, due to the outcome of this last election, as we'll say black females or women in general, is because they were getting a lot from the Democratic Party. But we never were. And even if you put a Republican in, we knew we still ain't going to get nothing. So we're kind of like, we're just like, hey, we wouldn't get nothing if you put her in, if you put him in, maybe it might be 1% better or worse, but we're not getting nothing no way. So we didn't take it to mean anything. But others have taken it to mean like, oh my goodness, the world is over. And if you want to know what the United States actual state religion is, if you want to know what it actually is, just wait until the next election. It is national politics. That is the religion. It's the only thing that you can literally go up to other people and be a total zealot and say, hey, you better vote. You better vote, and you better vote the way that I think you should vote. It's the only situation where that is seen as totally acceptable, where family members literally will disassociate from other family members based on if you voted for this person or if you voted for that person. I've seen on national media, corporate media, I saw a black woman actually suggest that when people are going to Thanksgiving dinner, that they they say, hey, well, I'm not coming to Thanksgiving dinner because I know some of you Dusties voted for Trump, or I know some of you Dusties voted for the couch, and we needed you to vote for Kamala, and that's voting against our interests. So if you want to know what the actual national religion is, okay, so let me directly answer the question. There's two outcomes, two possible things. One of which I think will only slow things down. The other thing is the ultimate is the thing that actually will fix everything permanently. To slow things down, we need a nuclear holocaust. We need wormwood to hit the planet, knock out all of the technology, all the infrastructure, wipe out 90% of the people on the planet, and then that 10% immediately feminism is over. Immediately, all of the stuff that is counter to the natural order, God over man, man over wife, wife over children, that stuff disappears instantaneously, and it's a rudimentary sort of life. Technology is not the center of life. The rebuilding of the Tower of Babel is no more. That has been totally toppled, and it's going to take generations to redevelop all of the technology in the infrastructure. So that's a temporary thing, because human beings are going to still do the same thing. We're going to still continue to push for what we have now. It's been done over and over. You saw Noah, the flood. With Noah, it's because human beings had developed, all they were thinking about was evil all day long. That's all they were, God saw that was bad. And so he said, hey, we got to do away with this. A rainbow, although it has been repurposed for other purposes now, for other reasons now, rainbow was a sign that God was not going to end the world with a flood. That's what the rainbow signified. Now, then you have the Tower of Babel, where, okay, y'all are trying to build a tower to the heavens and trying to sit on the throne of God. I can't have y'all understanding the same language anymore. So y'all need to not understand each other, because this is getting too close. But we have rebuilt the Tower of Babel. The second thing, which is really the only permanent solution, is the second coming of Christ. And I know that sounds really dark and terrible. And I think that we will have potentially some So I see that our sort of, race to the bottom, as it were. I see it as being everyone. We'll have a little bit of an up every once in a while, but basically we're still on the way down. And it's again, this is it. It sounds really dark. I'm sorry, um, but I'm a realist. I'm not a pessimist. I am a realist, and I don't know. Just looking at human history and looking about at how bad certain things are, and the unwillingness of certain parties to, though their ideology has been utterly destructive to everything, still advocate for themselves above everyone else regardless. I don't see how you can get to a place where the natural order is once again reverenced, celebrated, appreciated, central to society. I don't see another way.
Well, Dr. Thunder, a couple things. So I'll start with this, guys. This is a book I'm reading now as well. This is called Terms of Engagement, How Our Courts Should Enforce the Constitution's Promise of Limited Government. So a lot of things have been weaved into K through 12 and our institutions of higher learning, but civics education, a large part, is not what it used to be. And one thing a lot of people don't understand is that the government was never supposed to do all of these things that it's done. This gets back to the Dr. Thutter's comment about the government becoming God. The government was not supposed to influence reproductive rights. It wasn't supposed to influence student loans. It wasn't supposed to do all these things that it's been engineered to do. The other thing I wanted to say, going back to what Dr. Thunder just said, is going back to the beginning of the conversation. I said that we will likely never see women like my mother anymore, or our grandmothers. The woman you described, the psychiatrist who said, "Don't go to Thanksgiving dinner." Number one, that's someone, that's a very pretty woman. That's someone who would show up on my radar. She's educated, she's well accomplished. But those types of messages only serve to divide. And even if you think about Michelle Obama, what Michelle Obama said when she was campaigning for Kamala, Michelle Obama really got out on the warpath and really demanded that your husbands and your brothers and your uncles, you all do better by us, do right by us. Don't tell your husbands who you're voting for. Vote differently than your husbands. And I'm not even sure spouses are supposed to vote the same way, but it was just encouraging more gender gender acrimony towards one another.
Yeah.
And this is coming from leadership. This is coming from that elite class progressive leadership. So once you start infecting everything with that, how do you go back?
Yeah, I don't think, again, I don't think it's, look, I'm a student of human behavior. I watch, so I'm an introvert. Okay. And one of the benefits that introverts have is we will stay quiet, but we're paying attention to everything going on. We watch it. I'm watching everything that everybody's doing, and I don't say anything. I'm just looking at you like I'm just waiting for you to say this and that. Okay, I see where you at. Okay, I'm probably not going to engage you on a certain topic because you just revealed that would not be a good experience. Okay, that's cool. I'm a student of human behavior, and we do the same stuff over and over. We don't we don't really learn from things. I, you know, Now that used to be different. It seemed to be like at least people would learn from their own mistakes. But now what we do is we make mistakes and then we advocate for others to make the same mistakes, and we try to set things up so that they can also make the same mistakes. And it's crazy stuff. You know, um, and that's also what's interesting too. And then I'm gonna have to get going. What's interesting too is um, someone having heat for me for sharing my own mistakes in hopes that somebody else wouldn't have to make the same mistakes. You're pushing back against that, but where are you pushing back against the people that are making all these mistakes, but then are just advocating for others to just continue in the same debauchery? Where's your pushback on that? And it seems to me that at least what I'm doing is trying to get people to make better decisions. Whereas yours is basically is just let's just set the system up so that it will shelter and protect those that continue to make worse and worse decisions. I don't I see a lot of this stuff is just like it's just ridiculous, man.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Dr. Thunder, you have to go. My last question was, what do you hope for your son? You don't have to answer. You don't have to answer that, but your son is lucky to have you, just like you were fortunate to have your father, and I appreciate you sharing at the beginning how important your father was. That having solid male figures around, that's a key theme of my book. So I really appreciate you just adding that. But I thank you for coming to my platform and talking about this. We have to do this again. A little further in the future. I know you're a busy man, so we have to do this again sometime. I appreciate you coming and talking about.
Absolutely, man.
Okay, and everybody. Well, I mean, everybody in my chat knows who you are and what time you go on. But every day, man, I have to fight doing my work and watching your show. At some point, I just have to turn it off. But I appreciate what you do and keep up the good work.
Yeah, go Bucks.
All right, enjoy the game.
All right, man.
All right, Passport OG, the GOAT, thank you for this super chat in Japanese yen. Aquateki, thank you for the generous Cash App. Let me play one of your nods here.
Your side Decepticons in Prime.
For those of you who don't know, Aquatechi's avatar is Jazz from the Transformers, voiced by Scatman Crothers. And I think, guys, I think I will wrap this up here. 10:18. I have a few more things to do before the game. Dr. Thunder is an Ohio State guy. I am a Michigan guy. The game is taking place in about an hour and a half. So I have to go get my comfortable seat for the game. Paul Wilson, if you're still out there, remember, send me if you want your copy of the book. You answer the question correctly. Send me your mailing information to this email address, info@bigwordsauthors.com. Guys, in the coming weeks, I'll probably do some more holiday giveaways. But if you want to purchase a copy, this is my online store. This is in the description box below. And if it's not, I'll share the link here. This will be for an assigned author copy. Okay, and at a discount. The shipping and handling is built into this price. And also, if you use the coupon code Big Discussions 76, that will take $10 off the list price. The list price for the hard copy is $35. That's on Amazon as well. And then for the paperback, it's $25. So if you enter in that coupon code into my online store, you'll be able to get it for $25 and then $17, which is a steep discount from the Amazon price. And again, the shipping and handling is built into that price. So I'm going to order my author copies probably next week, and then I'll be able to get them and mail them out. But as I do more streams, I will do more of the giveaways. See, if Artisan was here, he's on the West Coast. If Artisan MC was here, he would have known what those two comic book references were. Guys, I'm going to throw this one up here one more time for one of you. So you didn't know what the first one was, but this one's more modern. So they're coming out with Captain America, A Brave New World. The villain in that is played by Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford took over for was it John Hurt? I think it was John Hurt, but he's also the Red Hulk. And the guy's last name is Ross, but he has a nickname that relates to Dr. Thunder's name. And I forgot to ask Dr. Thunder where the nickname came from. I'll have to ask him the next time. But if anyone knows the name of this character, I'll send you a free copy of my book as well. I'll hang on for a few more minutes, and then I have to wrap up. Who's playing President Ross? Oh, Harrison Ford is playing President Ross / the Red Hulk, but who knows what his nickname is? Aquateki, yes, I will. Because when you print your books on demand, you get them and you can sign them and then send them out. If they come straight from Amazon, they're not signed unless you bring it to a book signing. Okay, Aquateki, he says, I know the character's name, but I'll give someone else a chance. All right. So Aquateki is giving someone else a chance. Passport OG says, which payment method gets me a signed copy? Yeah, so if you can purchase through the store, Passport OG, using Visa, MasterCard, or American Express. But I also take Cash App, Venmo, Zelle, and PayPal. And since you're watching the show now, just take $10 off the list price. That's the coupon code. Just take $10 off. Send me for the hard copy. You can send me $25. For the paperback, you could send me $17. Let me take a look at this again. Yeah. If you want to pay through PayPal, Zelle, Cash App, Venmo, whatever, then taking $10 off, the hard copy would be $25, and then the paperback would be $20. The paperback would be $17, and the shipping and handling is all built in there. Though I suspect it'll be a few more shekels to send it to Asia. But hey, Aquacheki just gave it to one of you guys. If you guys know this character goes by a nickname, I'll let it go for a few more minutes. If anyone else wants, figures it out. I don't know how I forgot to ask Dr. Thunder where his nickname comes from. But Dr. Thunder, he was going. Normally when you ask your interviewees questions, they go, they give these they give shorter answers. But Dr. Thunder, he was a good guest. Okay. Let's see. I'll wait a few more minutes. So I do plan to, tomorrow will be December. So I have at least one more live stream planned here with another guest to talk about politics and current events. I don't think he has a channel. And then I'm definitely going to read a passage from Crimson Cure's book. Kendra, I'm sure you guys know who Kendra is. She cooks every day. She cooks every single day. She's talking to mostly women, but I'd like to interview Crimson Cure at some point. But there's a very, very powerful passage towards the end of her book, basically questioning, or basically, this chair is uncomfortable, basically reaffirming. It's tough when you sit in one place for 2 hours, unless you have one of the gamer chairs. But there's a powerful passage at the end of Crimson's book, basically saying what a woman's superpower is, which would be very, very unpopular today to say out loud, and also saying to women, Black women in particular, in particular, that it's okay to return to that role and that duty. And that's going to offend some people, which he says, but I think it's worth capturing. And it'll probably get me in trouble for highlighting that passage. But hey, the breakdown of the family and population decline, those are the issues of our time that a lot of people are not talking about, especially on the outside. Passport OG says, shipping is extra overseas. I need a shipping estimate. I'll gladly pay full price. Give me a shipping estimate, and I'll add it to the price. Okay, well, Passport OG, I'll have to go to the post office and see what that is. But okay, sure thing. I think I have your email address. But yeah, yeah, okay. All right, everyone. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Thank you to everyone who came through. Thank you for the likes and any shares or whatever. And yeah, I will do at least one more live stream in the next couple of weeks before the Christmas New Year's holiday, which yeah, I'll probably look to take a break. Yeah, with that, I'll wrap this up. Everyone, thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. As always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Always try to do your best. Take care, and I will talk to you all the next time. Thank you again, Dr. Thunder, for coming and gracing my channel. And I have to remember next time to ask him where his nickname comes from. And also, everybody, this t-shirt, this is Valdez the Angry Man merch. This is not my merch. This is not Dr. Thunder's merch. This is Angry Man's merch. This is Dustin. A lot of times in this sector and in the YouTube streets, we talked about Dusties. We talk about Dusty Ninjas. Dr. Thunder talks about Dusty Ninjas every day on his channel, but that's where this shirt comes from. I'm not sure Angry Man is still selling these, but Angry Man, if you're out there and you're watching this, I'd like to talk to you at some point about you and your path and your business acumen and your political leanings. So that's where Dustin comes from, everybody. All right, that's it. Everybody, enjoy the rest of your Saturday. If you're watching this on the playback, please let me know what you think in the comments section below. All right, everyone, take care, and I will talk to you the next time. Bye-bye.